Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning. My name is Cynthia Talbert, and I have been hired by your corporation, the Dynastic Enterprises Incorporated, to work with you in resolving conflict issues. How many of you have ever gotten up in the morning and got into an argument with your spouse or significant other? Please raise your hand. How many of you have gone to work and you've been driving and someone just ticked you off and you got very angry? Now, I don't want you to raise your hand. I want you to think about this. The person got you so angry that you then swerved your car into that person's lane, and then when the person stopped, you got out and you towed the person off. Okay. What about then you went on to work and you got into a feud with a coworker? Have you ever gotten into a feud with a coworker? Please raise your hand. How many of you then went home after work and argued at your children? Okay, and don't raise your hand at this. I want you to think about it. You were so angry from all the conflict all day at work that you actually came close to physically abusing your own child or someone's child. Or you were emotionally abusive to a child. If you raise your hand to any of those questions, you are in the right place. Welcome to the conflict zone. Now, I realize that it's very difficult for some of you to be emotionally naked. Some of you, it's easier just to take off your clothes, okay, and be physically naked. But it is required that if you're going to succeed in life, in this corporation, that you become emotionally naked. And that is why I am here. Also, the corporate psychologist, she's been flown in, and she's going to assist you. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Do you all know Ms. Franklin? She's going to assist you with becoming emotionally naked, peeling away the layers that can lead to conflict in life. All throughout your life, you're going to be in situations that can either lead to conflict or not. How you deal with those situations or resolve those situations will determine if conflict arises. And so that's why I'm here to help you, and that's why Ms. Franklin is here to help you as well. Now, let's go around the room. Let's introduce ourselves. Please tell where you're from, your name, where you're from, and also at least one more thing that you want us to know about yourself. Who would like to begin?
My name is Mr. Washington. I work out of our Baton Rouge division, and I'm in charge of finance.
I'm Miss Paige, and I'm from upstate New York, and I'm a member of the Gator Nation.
Wow. Okay.
I'm Dave Schlenker, and I am the marketing and editing director, and I am from Ocala, Florida, and I am actually a father of 2 girls and 2 corgi puppies.
All right.
Okay, I'm Lori Hutchison. I'm originally from South Florida, and I'm a single mother of 2 adult children now, and recently graduated from college with my bachelor's degree.
I'm Mr. Young from Ocala, Florida, and I'm currently a single father.
My name is Mr. Talbot. I'm from Ocala, Florida, and I enjoy spending my free time playing cards.
The corporation wants you to succeed, and reality is, if you are feuding with your spouse, the children, with individuals on the road, when you go into work, are you able to give 100%? Anybody able to give 100%?
No, your mind's divided. You're thinking about what took place rather than focusing on what you need to do.
Yes, and that's what the corporation wants to help you with. They are interested in the bottom line, and so they want to help you to reach your maximum full potential. Case study. We're going to focus on Michael Vick. How many of you know about Michael Vick? You know something about him? Okay, almost everyone. Okay, what do you know about Michael Vick? Excellent football player. Okay, anyone else?
Handed away his career.
Handed away his career. Okay, anything else?
He had a family too, wasn't he married?
Yeah,
He's married and kids.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else?
I think his story's not finished being written yet.
Right. Interesting concept.
He got into trouble, but he is trying to resurrect himself from the ashes.
Okay, now, you know some things about Michael Vick, but do you know where Michael Vick is from? Do you know anything about his mother, his father? Is it important?
Yes,
Why?
because that's where you start forming how you deal with relationships and other people, and that's where your core values and how you conduct your life come from. It is your family, the immediate people around you when you're young. That's your core, and it's going to be solid, and it's either going to be good or bad, and you either have to maintain it if it's good or fix it if it's poor. So I think it is very important to know how somebody was brought up.
Do we consider this when we are dealing with our spouses, our co-workers, and other people at church and other places that we interact? Do we consider that they were not born in the same home that we were born in, that they're not from the same place that we're from, and that they have different traditions and values than we do? Do we consider this?
I think initially we tend to kind of think about how we were raised in our background and kind of go off what we feel is right versus we don't know what the next person's been through, so we can't really focus on that. But as a person, we tend to look at our own life and apply it to others, but we can't do that because it's not always the same.
Well, especially if you're in the heat of the moment too. Yeah, you're feeling, if it's a conflict type situation, if you're in the heat of the moment, you're just thinking, how do I feel? It isn't even about where I'm from, what I'm doing, where they're from. I just know I'm not happy with you.
Right.
And on church Sunday, I may sit back and reflect and go, maybe I shouldn't have gone there. So it depends on where you're at emotionally, I think.
And that's a really good point, because I think a lot of times in our relationships, we hold this yardstick that reflects our background, and do you measure up to this yardstick? It's really different.
Okay, I'm not here to excuse what Michael Vick did, but I'm just here to give some background on Michael Vick because I think it is important for all the reasons that you all have stated. Michael Vick is actually the second of 4 children. His parents were teenagers when his mother got pregnant. They were not married. He's from Newport News, Virginia, and his father and mother had to work long hours, and they eventually got married, but they lived in the projects. Does any of that surprise you? Not at all. In the place where Michael Vick is from, it says that the housing project, was a financially depressed and crime-ridden neighborhood located in the East End section of the port city. A 2007 newspaper article published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch noted, "Not much changed by observations of local people almost 10 years after Michael Vick left." So it was a place where everything was the same, nothing changed. People probably had dreams, they had goals, and yet maybe they could not see how to succeed. And so from generation to generation, things pretty much stayed the same. It says one resident said that there was drug dealing, drive-by shootings, and other killings in the neighborhood. In a 2001 interview, Vick told the Newport News Daily Press that when he was 10 or 11, that he would just go fishing, even if it wasn't the time of year when fish were biting, just to get away from the violence and stress of daily life in the projects.
Well, plus now is he making more money, so more things are available, what he didn't have before too. Would that possibly play into it?
I think it would, and I think if you think of it this way, and some of you this may fit you in this room, you may have been the good one from the family, okay? You had a brother and sister and they did things that you did not do, and you went on, you got a degree, and you succeeded. However, there were still things that you did from the way you were raised back in the neighborhood, still things you do today. Guess what? They're not as bad as, like some of the people were arrested for drug dealing and whatnot where he's from, some were killed, some killed other people. Not as bad as what they did. So guess what? You felt like, well, I'm successful. I can hold on to my little stuff. You felt validated in holding on to your stuff. and you continued to hold on. And I submit that maybe that's why Michael Vick ended up in the situation that he was in, because people said, well, you're okay, you're fine. And he continued on as he was. But he continued on with some of the practices from his childhood. Now, let's look at Michael Vick. What did he actually accomplish? We say that he rose and he fell, but how far was the fall? We know Michael Vick, he was an American football quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles of the National Football League. He played for the Atlanta Falcons for 6 seasons before serving time in prison for his involvement in an illegal dogfighting ring. He played college at Virginia Tech, where he was a freshman. He placed 3rd in the Heisman Trophy balloting. No small feat. I don't know how many of you are into sports. I'm not really, but I know that's not a small feat.
The Gator Nation knew about
A greater nation knew about him, or you were checking him out.
Absolutely.
Gotta take him down.
Absolutely.
Okay, it says that he left after his sophomore year to enter the NFL and was drafted 1st overall by the Atlanta Falcons in the 2001 NFL Draft. He became the first African American quarterback to be selected 1st overall in an NFL draft. In 6 seasons with the Falcons, he gained wide popularity for his performance on the field and led the Falcons to the playoffs twice. Vick ranked 2nd among quarterbacks in career rushing yards. He was not some small-time football player. He accomplished a lot. His awards: the Archie Griffin Award winner, 1999, 3rd in Heisman voting, 1999, 6th in Heisman voting, 2000, Best NFL Player ESPY Award, 2003. At this time, he was a 3-time Pro Bowl selection, but he is now a 4-time, but as of the time of the writing, and the Galloping Gobbler Award, 2005. So he had credentials. He had, in essence, arrived. He made millions of dollars. He received millions of dollars alone in bonuses. He had several multi-million-dollar homes in several states. He actually had his family members and friends living in those, and he had very expensive cars. So he had succeeded. He had arrived. Many football players will definitely envy what he has accomplished to date. And now we start to look at the downfall. Who would like to read first in 2007?
I will. In 2007, statements were made by his father, Michael Bodie, about possible dogfighting activities in 2001. Bodie told Atlanta Journal-Constitution that around 2001, Vick was staging dogfights in the garage of the family's home in Newport News and kept fighting dogs in the family's backyard, including injured ones, which the father nursed back to health. Bodie said that his son had been urged to not engage in the activity, but continued. He stated, "This is Mike's thing, and he knows it." Within days, Vick's mother, Brenda Vick Bodie, told the Newport News Daily Press there was no dogfighting at our home. There were no cages.
Do you see anything significant there?
The dad is telling on him.
Okay.
And
Well,
the
you
mother
got
and the father
two
are
birds.
conflicting
Same
stories.
One's protecting and one's
Who-
being
You think the mother's protecting?
honest.
So you think he was actually doing it then, but mom was protecting.
Yes.
Did that help him?
No, it didn't.
No, and that's
But-
probably part of the problem.
I believe the father hurt him more than what the mother did, me personally. Just because, I mean, for her to get out and say what she said, the father had to say what he said first, which put him in the spotlight. So to try to cover her family name, she just said that in reaction to what her husband said to kind of keep everything down because of his status.
And I'm not sure about his relationship with his father, but do you sometimes have to expose a loved one before they will face themselves and get help or make changes? Is that necessary sometimes? Bearing in mind, I don't know what his relationship was like with his father and what was behind this, but I'm asking in general in life.
Define expose.
Yeah.
Come out in the open.
In other words, go to the press if your son is a very well-known figure. Not necessarily the press, but go to the public.
Well, I want you to tell me, should you go to the press? Should you go to a minister? Should you go to a counselor? I mean, what should you do? Or
There's very clear definitions in that. I mean, obviously, a parent, I don't think the first step should be the National Enquirer when you're dealing with this so much as, absolutely, you go to, if you recognize there is indeed an issue, a problem, something that you know, and if you were a parent, you obviously know this gentleman's in the spotlight. No matter the history, you know that this is probably something that will come out in this particular culture, and whether you recognize it's a clear definition between right and wrong, I think the family pastor, I think the family counselor, I think, you know, there are certainly outlets. When you say expose, yes, I think that's naturally your first stop. You must make it very clear. Well, actually, I think the first stop is the family. The family needs to, you know, mom and dad need to sit down and figure out, you know, how they feel on this thing, what they want to say to whom, and how they want to process this.
And if
you
it's
know,
their business.
Yeah, because
Right.
we can hear.
well, it is, yeah. I mean, again, it's how you interpret this. I mean, I think no matter what your background is, you need to come to terms with. You've got with the credentials you just named, all eyes are on Michael Vick. There's no denying this, whether your mom, dad, whether your, you know, cousin Michael Vick the fourth. You understand this gentleman is in the spotlight, and you understand what this guy is doing is illegal. You have to recognize this. How you process this is sitting down, I think, A, first with Michael, and then B, with the family on, you know, how do we deal with this? Is this a problem? We may not have any problem with this.
Yeah, because basically from what I see by reading it, just being a college athlete, the parents, his father may tend to feel that it was Michael, not him, because stating right here, his father nursed the dogs back help, which means he was also involved in the activity, which what I get from it is he exposed him not to get him in trouble, but kind of the boast of, look what we have, look what's going on. Because of their background, he doesn't know any better. His son is in the national spotlight, but he's not. He's still back in the projects, and he still has a project mentality. So to him, in the projects, the dog fighting is okay. So when he exposes it, it's not like, I'm reading here, he's not trying to expose it to his son doing something bad, because he was in on it also. Yeah, he nursed back to health the injured dogs. That's what it states here. So, which means, for what I'm looking at, the father was okay with it, but the mother wasn't. Because why would she say nothing's going on when he said, I'd help nurse him back to health? If you're not okay with it, why are you even nursing him back to health?
See, I look at the opposite way. To me, I think that Dad put it out there, and because he was part of it, his saving grace was saying, but I helped the dogs. That's what I'm seeing as Dad going. He was a bad kid, and you need to know this, but I was okay, you know, I let it go on, but I did help the dogs. So that gives that a different interpretation.
And is dad trying to get in the spotlight
Right.
to
Exactly.
rival with his son? Is that what it's really more about?
And reading this, it makes it very clear, or at least to me anyway, that, you know, the parents are, to put it mildly, covering their own selves in this.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, and maybe it's just their presence, their defense in the media so much, but it's clear, A, that they really hadn't discussed how we want to proceed with this on a family level, and then, yeah, you know, they're concerned with their public image just as much, if not more, than they're concerned with their son's public image.
They have a lot to lose too,
Well,
and they're
yeah.
getting a free ride.
Absolutely.
Well, something that's missing here, did Michael Bodie go to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or is this something that came out as part of the investigation?
at this point, I don't know that there was an investigation. It seems like he spoke. I'm not really sure what prompted him to speak. Reporters may have been looking around and just asking questions, but the father volunteered the information.
Well, that makes me wonder if he didn't have an axe to grind.
Well, knowing Michael Vick's case, knowing about exactly what happened, it wasn't necessary. I think that it came out after an investigation went on, because from my understanding, the way they uncovered the whole dog fighting era was due to someone in his family got stopped on a drug charge or something and gave the address to Michael Vick's home to the police officer And so upon stopping him with the drugs, they went to the house to search for more drugs and uncovered a bigger operation. And then I think out of that happening, the family just was in turmoil and they just started saying different things and try to cover up where they needed to cover themselves to try to make everything work. But by that time it was too late. They had already.
But back to, on your original question, do you have to expose people to get them to change?
Mhm.
In a perfect world, what I want to think happened, and I don't know, it could be any of these things, is that when you see someone that you care about, whether it's a colleague, a friend, a parent, whatever, and they're going down the wrong road, I think your first obligation is to talk to that person. Mm-hmm. And there's levels, like you were saying, there is a hierarchy of things that you do, and you pick your battles. As a parent, and if this was my son, and I had tried to talk to him, I had tried to talk to his friends to talk to him, and I had gone down every path I could go, be it counseling, church counseling, regular counseling, whatever it might be. If it got to the point where I saw my son being self-destructive, and if I had to choose, am I going to let him self-destruct or am I going to ruin his career? I'd ruin his career.
Wow, that's tough love. A lot of people would find that difficult to do.
I wouldn't like giving up the house and the cars. I'm not saying it would be easy, but
Yeah, public humiliation
yeah,
would be the last resort. But
and there's so many parents that I think there's so many people that's the reason that bad habits are learned, because nobody wants to be tough. They don't want to be, they want to be friends with their kids, and they don't want them to be upset with them. And your kids should be upset with you when they're growing up and learning boundaries and learning what's right and wrong, because your kids are going to be wrong. That's why we're parents and they're kids. If you grow up feeling that everything's okay as long as no one finds out, or as long as we downplay it, that's where you get into the bad habits. So the tough love, it's tough at first, but then as your child grows into the person that can make those good decisions on their own, you're not having to spend your whole life being hurt by watching your child make bad decisions.
Yes, and maybe perhaps the fact that he did employ several family members, and then he did provide for their homes and their cars, maybe that blurred the boundaries and the issues. And then again, maybe some of those people really felt that there was nothing wrong with fighting dogs.
That's the point that I was about to make. Because of his environment, and that was to go along with what Mr. Young was saying, because of the environment that he was raised in the projects, with drugs, that type of activity, fighting pit bulls, is very common in the drug culture. So if he grew up around that and he grew up with that and his parents had him exposed to that, I'm going to venture to say that they probably didn't think that there was anything wrong with that, because that was the environment that they were in growing up.
But they wouldn't know it was illegal?
They probably, even though if you know it's illegal, if it's a part of your everyday, it becomes part of your everyday.
So to them, dog fighting would be like me doing 70 and 65.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Because you know that's wrong too, and you continue
And
to
the
do
drugs,
it.
they know the drugs are
It's
illegal,
wrong.
But it's your
but they're still doing
everyday
it.
life. So we're assuming that his parents knew better, and I'm going to assume that his parents probably, at some point knew better, but because they've been exposed to it so long, it was okay.
Yeah, and it came out as something hard to deal with.
Right.
You had to deal with that situation in life before.
And I'll have to be honest with you. I am very much a lover of animals. But I'll tell you, I was raised with some people who did fight dogs. Now, did I ever go to a dog fight? No. Did I know where they were per se fighting the dogs? No. But I have had relatives. I've even had brothers who have fought dogs. And these are people I loved, who ate at family dinners with me. I love still today, even though I know they fought the dogs, because that was a part of the culture that I was raised in. Some people fought dogs. I didn't agree with it, but they did it, and you just didn't really deal too much with it. Now, if one of my brothers had become famous and whatnot, it would become a bigger issue, because now the world is looking at my family and my brothers. But other than that, no. It's what people did in a certain part of where I was from, in a certain part of that neighborhood. They did it.
And had he not been Michael Vick, would he have cared if he was fighting dogs?
No, because actually they were fighting in several states. So apparently it's very common for some people. If you go back in the slavery, you had Chicken George and you had the cockfights. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but some people did that. So there is a tradition of fighting animals in certain parts of this country.
After he went and he's been mentored, I believe he's a better football player now than he was before because he's seen things and he had to humble himself. So it helped him humble himself also on the field versus his play. If you watch Michael Vick play now versus when he played then, he was a runner versus a passer. Now he's more of a passer, which means that let you know it took a toll on him, and it helped him understand that sometimes you have to listen. You can't always be in the spotlight. You have to listen and sit back and take the back seat, which he did his first year when he sat back and was under Donovan McNabb because he didn't get to play, so he had to actually sit back. And I think the situation actually helped him as a person in some aspects.
But if you had charge after charge after charge.
Well, allegation after allegation after allegation, I think we need to look at that. He's not being charged.
It was actually his first offense, and that's something that was brought out. And but I believe that they actually took action against him the way they did because they said that he tried to cover up things, he lied, and that is when they said he did not seem humble and he did not appear to have learned anything. So that's why they took some of the action that they did against him. Now, I can even see, I was born and raised here in Ocala, and I know that there are some people who commit certain crimes, and they do get perks, they do get it covered over for them, and others do not. So I can see things in my life that happened with Michael Vick. Yes, money does talk. If you know people in a certain setting, okay, that makes a difference as well. In the court, that's why I tell some people, look, don't even get arrested, because guess what? Sometimes they're human beings who are administering the laws, and sometimes it's not fair. But that's life. That's life. So that's why you need to deal with your issues so that you won't find yourself in certain situations.
Coming back to the Ash's comment, one thing I would bring out is I don't know if any of us could relate to having arrived near or at the pinnacle, being a professional athlete making millions of dollars, to having it all taken away. The man went through bankruptcy, ended up in jail. A lot of personalities would not be able to recover from that.
Only three of them.
I'm sorry.
I have a point to make, but even with that, he is taking a risk because he is under such close scrutiny now. We all know what he did. It's right here.
Right.
Our sins are not as exposed as this, per se. We all know about him, and we are all looking at him now to say, okay, so what is he going to do now? So he had to decide, okay, am I going, even with all of this support, like you said, they're marketing him well. Even with all of that, he knows that he's still in the spotlight because the first time he does something wrong, he's going back down again. Would I be willing to go through all of that? I can't say that that would be me.
But if you're doing it just at a job level, I mean, if we're bringing it down to the corporate level, which is what we're trying to tie this in with, if I had done something, I would still be under a microscope, albeit a much smaller one. But my colleagues are going to be looking at me. We've had, colleagues that have left and come back, and people do look at them more. People do, talk more. There's more gossip. There's more, and that's very difficult to deal with stress-wise because everyone's looking at me. They're assuming I'm going to mess up. They're waiting for me to mess up, and how difficult that is personally to come into that situation is very tough to know that people are just waiting for you to mess up because unfortunately people don't always like a happy ending.
And are you willing to take that chance? I mean, he's willing to take that chance, and I think that ties in with what you're saying. He's willing to take that chance that, hey, this pressure is going to be on me. I don't know if everybody can handle that pressure like that.
And back to the point about the pressure, we can relate, it's not basically the same instance, but you can relate how you said he came back and he still, how he had to fight through the adversity to come back. That's the same thing with Tiger Woods. He went through the same situation, and his adversity, he has not fought back. Have you seen after his downfall, it wasn't a downfall as big as Michael Vick because he didn't do the exact same thing.
Legal.
Yeah, but for his perception and how he plays on the field, it has distracted his whole lifestyle, and he's not even the same player that he's not. So for him to come back after all that adversity that he did have and still, like you said, be the person he is and to come back into play, it takes a big person because some people can't come back from that.
Michael Vick did win the 2010 NFL Player Comeback of the Year. This is an award that his colleagues actually voted for him. And so he said that was very special to him because his colleagues, he did have the pressure of knowing that he was being watched, that he was being judged, talked about and whatnot. And they saw that he was working so hard and they felt that he was redeeming himself. And so they gave him that award. And he said that was special, very special to him. So I think that's something that's important.
That too, and I don't follow sports at all. So I don't know Michael Vick or
You know Tim
Dungy,
Tebow.
or I do know about Tim Tebow from Gator Nation, yes.
And jockey underwear.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yes.
If Tim falls,
Oh my goodness.
I will have heart palpitations.
I will
if Tim
have
falls.
to take her somewhere for counseling. I'm
Good old
telling you.
Baptist point is
But-
But
No, and I don't discount anything that anybody said, but, you know, we question, well, did he really change? Or his, is his personality any different than it was in the first place? And I think we have to at least be open and allow for that, because if we don't allow for the possibility of change in people, whether it's you or me or somebody big like him or Mike Tyson or Tiger Woods or Britney Spears, then we're all in trouble. And we've got to at least be open to allow for, the possibility of change.
I appreciate some of the things that he did. So obviously the long list that he racked up over the years, it does show a pattern of personality traits. But that's what I meant by rising from the ashes.
still not buying any of it because
Me neither.
and the reason for that, and I appreciate the point, but I think the reason for that is because there was so much money to be had in Michael Vick's recovery. He still had the talent. He's still Michael Vick. But there are still people who put him in the right hands to make that comeback. I don't think Michael Vick left
Could've
jail
done
and said,
so. You may be right.
If
I
he
don't
lost
know.
"This is
everything,
wonderful.
would he be
My
where
heart
he
is
is now?"
pure. I'm going to."
We
you
did
know,
lose everything.
Yeah.
No, bankruptcy for those people is not like bankruptcy for you and me.
Right.
Trust me on this.
Okay.
It is nothing near
But
what
be that as
bankruptcy
it may, I
seems
don't
like.
think Michael Vick emerged from jail. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he came out. He saw Christ. He said, "Okay, this is what I aspire to." The pairing of him and Tony Dungy was brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely. But I have a feeling, being the marketing director, marketing is all about image. I mean, if Michael Vick were my client, the first thing I would do when he walked out of jail was have Tony Dungy come in, give him a big hug, and say, "Let's get back to work."
Or even care if it is. I
That's an
really,
excellent
personally, Michael Vick, in my life, I hope the best for him, but is that a battle I care about or want to follow?
Right.
No, I really don't care. I need to worry
Yeah.
about my world and what's going on around me,
Right.
not about what this person's doing or what this person did. You pick your battles and you pick your conflicts and your challenges and your things you want to watch, all this reality TV going on. I got enough reality in my life.
Yeah.
Don't need
Oh,
to watch
I
it
don't
on
watch
TV.
that.
But we feed off of conflict now in society. That's why there is so much reality TV and competitions, because we want to see those people matching up against each other and fighting. That's being fed to us constantly, and that is what's making money. That's what people are watching, adults, children, whatever.
Right.
And when you start believing that that's reality, you do walk into a workplace and think, oh, it's okay that if she says something I don't like, I can get in her face and start the, and it isn't. And I almost feel like, you just want them to shut down the media sometimes and go back to when things were, when it mattered if you had good behavior, when it mattered if you solved problems, instead of having to yell or win, that you resolve.
Tying those 2 points together, that's a really good point, is, I think the optimistic point of view of, yes, let's give the guy a chance, let's, let him, let's put it on him. I think that the telltale signs of, is the rising from the ashes metaphor applicable, is what does he do with this on a personal level, as opposed to, just giving him the benefit of the doubt. You mentioned, giving his salary. Okay, that's cool, but on a personal level, away from the machine, I want to see him going out to those neighborhoods. I want to see him going out. I want to see him letting folks know all right, you know, this is what was wrong. This is how I escaped all this. This is, you know, I want inspirational messages from him and only him, and not the marketing people.
Right.
You know, I guess Tiger Woods is a different story. You know, kids, don't be unfaithful. I mean, when you got
To
an
get it
He
away
opportunity,
wasn't hired to
from
be
you.
a role model. He was hired to be a football player.
But no, if there's a
Yeah.
true conviction and a true change
Right.
in him, he will, you know, that's
Right.
what we're saying is there's the possibility, and maybe he's just not gotten to that
he has
stage
been
yet,
handled this
but go
opportunity.
back to your community,
He has been
make a
handed a
difference.
platform. Now the question is, has he risen from the ashes? If he rises from the ashes, if he is solely out of those ashes, if they're off his shoes, to me, you know, he's been granted a platform in which to prove himself.
But is he obligated to use it to prove that he's changed?
It's a personal thing. He's not obligated to do anything, but yet we still are going to question whether his authenticity.
And I guess the bottom line is that he has to realize that the whole world is going to question it
Right.
and not have that conflict himself. You're going to
Right.
question me, you're going to look at me, you're going to think things, whatever. You got to be good enough with yourself to know that you're okay and not have to feel like you have to do things to prove to other people. When you start working for other people, that's when you get in trouble.
And wouldn't it be enough that if he never fought dogs again, never toked on a doobie again, never stole a watch again, or never threw a water bottle at somebody else again? Wouldn't that be enough?
Yeah, I mean, we
thinking
work
the
in
same
our jobs every day and aren't necessarily out there in the community. I'm not saying that's a requirement. I'm just saying that is one way he could, you know,
But does
say
he have
this
to?
is a
This
no,
is the thing.
no.
And I think when I was listening to you talk and said, you know, he needs to do this, does he have to?
No, he could.
He could.
He could.
We
Right.
could do a lot of things, but
Exactly.
do I have to do
If
those
it's
things to
important
prove
enough to
to
him.
you or to prove to you or to prove to you? If
Who are you
I'm
doing
at
it
peace
for?
within myself,
Right.
No, and
do I have to prove? I know what you're saying.
I wasn't even
He's
saying he
one
has to
that makes
prove
successful
anything to anybody because it's all about himself.
He's done
I'm just
some
saying
things
we
with
need
the
to be,
Humane
we,
Society
if we're
laws. I'm
watching
not
him
rushing
and
him.
saying, oh, well, he just caught a break because he's a good football player, there's money behind him, and he's got good marketing, and we've just rewarded him for bad behavior. There is the possibility that there has been true change within him. And if we don't at least allow for that possibility and say, okay, maybe he really is different, then if we don't allow that for someone such as him, then we're in trouble.
But I
And
think,
I think we need to consider as well, I'll make sure I clear this up. Now, the watch incident, I may have read it wrong. I think it was like 2 people with
It was
him.
his friends.
So it was
It's his
associates.
friends.
Also, we've named several athletes. I think they primarily been African American. So Tiger is actually what is it, Caucasian?
I don't know what
Something
that
like
means.
that. So let me change that.
Right.
But I think we need to know that this can happen to anyone,
Yes.
all ethnic groups, because we all have internal issues. And I think one thing that I've realized later in life is that, guess what? Life is a journey. When you're traveling, there's a possibility that you will make mistakes. Guess what? That's one moment in time. It's a
Right.
moment in your life. And that's something that I tell the young people at the jail. If you did whatever you did yesterday, it's done. But guess what? Today is a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Yes, there will be consequences, but guess what? You do not have to continue to be that person and continue to do those things that you did yesterday. So we need to remember, it's one moment in time. How many years of his life went into going into prison and went into public shame and humiliation? How many years? Not even
couple.
2
3
total,
years.
maybe three total. And some people live to be 100 years old. I think we need to keep it in perspective. You will continue to grow until you die. So allow yourself, if it happens, if you make a mistake, to learn and to change.
And I think a good point that Lori made, you, as people looking on, you do have to allow for the change. She made that point, and it's great. You have to allow people to change. You just can't say, well, because they did X, Y, and Z, they will always be this way. As a person in the family and in the life, you have to allow people the opportunity to change. Right.
I think a key concept, though, that you're hitting on is it is a choice. You know, I mentioned a little while ago about Dave stealing a donut from my desk and me wanting to walk up and punch him in the nose. Well, quite honestly, I have to make a conscious choice that is not how I'm going to resolve the conflict.
Right.
And-
Right, choosing the battles.
Mhm.
Like,
Right, is that important?
right.
And you have to prepare yourself for that, because things are going to happen in the course of the day that you cannot anticipate or expect, and your emotional levels and emotional state is going to change during the day, and you're going to respond differently to stimulus at different times. But regardless of what it is, you have to make a conscious choice every day. I'm not going to engage in a violent, whether it's verbally, emotionally, or even physically, fashion, and we're going to try to address the issue in a constructive way. And if you make those choices on a daily basis, then I think you would begin to move away from conflict situations. Does that make some sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, and we will get more deeply into that. Maybe some things were not said that you wanted to be said, but we will go there, because actually the course goes very deep, but it does require emotional nakedness, and you kind of have to ease
I'm
into
gonna say it's
that.
very easy for us to have this great conversation because it's not about us.
And that's
We all
my
have a
joke.
lot of opinions and judgments, except you. I'm gonna get to you. You can be talking. But
Andre,
when it's somebody
she's not
else, we have a
joking.
lot of opinions and shouldas and couldas and da 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 da. And when it's us, we deflect and we deflect,
Well, to
and
help
it's hard to,
Yeah.
And that's why I chose someone
Yes.
else.
I
Yeah.
throw a lot of dirt on Kelly.
What about you? What about me? How is it going to read? I think the gentleman there, you stated that his story, and you said it so well, I don't want to mess it up. What did you say?
I don't remember. It was something about he resurrected himself from
And
the
it's still
ashes.
being written. You said it's still.
There you go. Thank you.
It is still being written. And that's the way it is for each person in this room. And reality is no one's perfect. We all have faults. We all will make mistakes. But just like Michael Vick, we can be resurrected from the ashes if we want to be resurrected from the ashes. But we all have to choose. We all have to make this decision. And we all can become instruments of change. Until the next time, as we continue in the conflict zone. The cockfights, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but some people did that. So there is a tradition of fighting animals in certain parts of this country.
Fighting is illegal here, because like some people in different countries, it is legal. Because if you go to Japan, I've seen on the internet, you go to Japan and China, they actually host arenas where they have these dog fighting sessions where they actually have a referee. I've actually seen a man with a suit stand up and watch, administer the fights, but it's in a different country and it's legal and everybody's betting money, just like you can go back in the Bible days like the gladiators when they used to just come and watch everybody fight. In different countries, they feel it's the same thing. So they do it differently in different places. So different people have different perceptions.
Okay. One thing that Michael Vick's father said, he said, this is Mike's thing. Some people say, well, Michael Vick did this because of relatives, because he's trying to keep up with his friends from the neighborhood and whatnot. But his father submitted that this is Michael Vick. This is what he likes to do. This is about Michael Vick. This is an issue for Michael Vick. I would have to ask each of you today to think about this. What is your thing? I don't know if it's open the way Michael Vick's was. I don't know if it's internal. It's hidden deeply within you. I don't know if it's lurking in your bowels. I don't know. But everybody in this room has at least one thing that if you indulge in it, it can lead to your destruction. It can lead to your failure within this corporation, your failure within life. Getting mad, it could be. Okay? It's conflict. Michael Vick, this situation, did it have to happen? No. It was something that could have been avoided. It's a conflict situation. Within each of us, there's conflict internally, despite what may happen outwardly. Inwardly, we all have conflict. And until we learn to deal with that conflict that's internal, we are going to fail in our lives. Now, there's the conflict with other people, and we'll get there. We'll get there. But this first time, I wanted to focus on internal conflict also. I want to spotlight that, because a lot of times we don't say, well, people made me do it, they made me do it. But sometimes I think you need to look at the person and say, look at Cynthia. Let's see where she was born and raised. Maybe this is something that she just was into, and it wasn't the friends and family per se. Yes, they were there, you know, and neighbors, whatever. But this was Cynthia's thing. So I want you to think about that. Next, what happened before that?
Next part.
Mm-hmm.
October 10th, 2004, Vic and other members of his party, including employee Juanis Phillips, were at Atlanta's Hartsfield International Airport on the way to board an air return flight. While they were passing through the security checkpoint, a security camera caught Philip and Todd Harris picking up an expensive appearing watch, which belonged to Alvin Spencer, a security screener. After watching the theft on videotape, Spencer filed a police report. He claimed that Billy White Sox Johnson, known as the Falcons fixer, interfered with the investigation. Although Vic representatives declined to make him available for an Atlanta police inquiry, 6 days later, Spencer got the watch back from them.
Okay, so what do we see here?
Friends.
These are the friends helping to contribute to his downfall. They even have the fixer there to take care of everything.
Well, it's about the team. I think the statement that you read earlier bothered me more, that, you know, stay out of trouble for the good of the team. Forget about your personal life and what you might want to become as a human being. It's bad for the team.
Yeah, but some families do that too. Don't embarrass the family.
Good point.
Stay out of trouble for the good of the family. So yeah, it's just another team.
Don't besmirch our name.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, what happened next?
In March 2005, Sonia Elliott filed a civil lawsuit against Vic, alleging she contracted genital herpes from him in the autumn of 2002 and that he failed to inform her that he had the disease. Elliott further alleged that Vic had visited clinics under the alias Ron Mexico to get treatment and thus knew of his condition. On April 24, 2006, Vic's attorney, Lawrence Woodward, revealed that the lawsuit had been settled out of court under undisclosed terms. Many fans bought custom jerseys from NFL.com with Vic's number 7 and the name Mexico on the back. The NFL has since banned customizing jerseys with the name Mexico.
Is another one of his things, because Michael Vick actually has a thing for women. He has several kids that he had before he was married, so he has a thing for women. So this is another issue for him.
It doesn't sound like just, I don't know if it was a thing as much as a nothing is off limits to me lifestyle,
Right,
period.
right.
Before he almost had, not permission, but the money and the fame to do it, this was who he was beforehand. I'll be with women, I'll steal things, nothing's off limits to me. He was untouchable even before he became untouchable formally to everybody.
Which made it worse. And that's what I'm telling you, what I'm stating inside. What's inside of you can destroy you, especially when you become successful. And that is why you want to learn about these things before you rise within this corporation.
But I think the interesting point is, like she said, he was what he was. The money just made it worse. The money didn't change
Made it public.
him. It made it public and it made it worse because now he had the money to afford
to
to
do exactly
indulge
what he
in
wanted
these
to do,
things
yeah.
a little bit more. So his upbringing was still in him. His lifestyle was still in him.
That was him
Nothing
all the time.
changed just because he got in the public eye.
That's how I feel about Mike Tyson.
Only thing changed
Is the
is
same
that
thing
money.
happened to him. You know, you're brought up in an environment, and then suddenly you're thrown into a spotlight, and people expect, you know, so you're going to be this person who's going to behave like all the people out there, average America, wants you to behave, and that's, you know, you have to a degree because you're going to be looked at so much under a microscope, but it's not really fair either.
Yeah.
And what about each of us? What about each of us? Isn't it the same way?
Yeah.
You are who you are, and as you rise, you will continue to be that person, or you will change and grow, or not, or not.
You know, just to add here that Ron Mexico is the worst alias you could have.
Even crazy.
Got it in.
You're fighting dogs, you're messing with watches,
And you're Ron Mexico.
Ron Mexico.
Ron Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm watching it.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they even had custom-made jerseys with that information on it. I mean, someone has herpes. I mean, that's just, to me, that's something that's serious.
I would
you
still
know.
buy that though.
Hmm?
No question about it.
Oh my goodness.
I'd go to the internet right after this meeting.
eBay it.
Conflict. Some of us would, some of us would not.
No conflict.
Capitalism, not conflict. There's a difference.
I'll buy everyone in this room, Ron.
Mercy. Okay, and then the last one.
I'll read it. The last one, or
November
January
26,
17th?
2006 is the last one we're going to read.
Oh, the last one, okay. After a loss to the New Orleans Saints in the Georgia Dome, in apparent reaction to fans booing, Vic made an obscene gesture at fans, holding up 2 middle fingers. He was fined $10,000 by the NFL and agreed to donate another $10,000 to charity and another $10,000 on behalf of Raw in Mexico. I just made that last part. But he agreed to donate another $10,000 to charity. That's what it is.
Okay, and so we see that there were warnings. There were warning signs, and still he continued on. And sometimes in life, that's the way it is for each of us. We see that we have faults sometimes. We see that the faults could lead to problems. But guess what? We continue on. And if we continue on, unfortunately, there are consequences. So for Michael Vick, what happened? He was fired. Public hatred, humiliation. He lost his salary, millions of dollars. He had to pay back $19.97 million in bonuses alone. Bankruptcy. He was sentenced to 23 months in prison. All of this could have been avoided. All of this. And I think each of us in this room, we have to ask ourselves, is this something that's going to happen in my life? Not necessarily on this scale, or maybe on this scale if you rise up in the corporate ranks. And that's something we need to think about. Okay, for Michael Vick, he was mentored by Tony Dungy, make sure I get that right. Dungy. I want to say Gee. He made a comeback and he signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. On September 21st, 2010, Reed named Vick the Eagles' starting quarterback. He was on his way back. On November 15th, in a Week 10 Monday Night Football matchup against the Washington Redskins, Vick passed for 333 yards and 4 touchdowns, while he rushed for 80 yards and another 2 touchdowns. Vick threw an 88-yard touchdown pass to Deshaun Jackson on the first play from scrimmage in the game, and went on to lead the Eagles to a 59-28 victory. Vick was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week following his performance, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame asked him for his game jersey to display after Vick became the first player to pass for 3 touchdowns and rush for 2 touchdowns in the first half of a game. On December 19, in a Week 15 matchup against the New York Giants, Vick led a fourth quarter rally to erase a 21-point deficit. Wow. And scored 3 touchdowns to tie the game with under 2 minutes left. Deshaun Jackson returned a punt return for a touchdown to win the game for the Eagles as time expired. That's Michael Vick's story. What about you? What about me? How is it going to read? I think the gentleman there, you stated that his story, and you said it so well, I don't want to mess it up. What did you say?
I don't remember.
It's ongoing.
It was something about he resurrected himself from
And
the
it's
ashes.
still being written. You said it's
Oh,
still
there you go. Thank you.
It is still being written. And that's the way it is for each person in this room. And reality is no one's perfect. We all have faults. We all will make mistakes. But just like Michael Vick, we can be resurrected from the ashes if we want to be resurrected from the ashes. But we all have to choose. We all have to make this decision. And we all can become instruments of change. Until the next time, as we continue in the conflict zone.